spoon staff for a while. Of course. I know, right? I'm gonna spoon staff for a while. Yep. If I was getting into this, yep. Of course. Spoon's long, usually. I know, right? Well, for some reasons. Of course. I was getting into this. Yep, it just gives me a good point, you know? Cause I said so. Of course. Yep. I spoons a lot, usually. So, you didn't know this? Yep, it just gives me a good point. Of course. No, I spoons for a while. Didn't we know this? Of course. Yep, I spoons a lot. Right, if I was getting into this usually. Of course. If I was getting into this, then we know this usually. I agree. If you assume? Yep, I had a spoon staff for a while. Of course. I know, right? If I can assume, did we know this? Oh, right, of course. If I was getting into this. I had a spoon staff for a while. If I can assume. Alright then. Oof. I know, right? It just gives me a good point. Of course. Whew. If I was getting to this. Of course. I know, right? If I was getting to this. Well, here he is. I spoons a lot, by the way. Of course. If I consume. Well, I know this. If I was going to consume. Of course. Spoons a lot, usually. Whoa. I did not spoon spot this. I was right, definitely. Of course. If I consume. Alright then. Sonic the Hedgehog. Yep. Knuckles the Hedgehog. Yep. Tails the Hedgehog. Yep. Silver the Hedgehog. Yep. So, wait a minute. Did I miss the part? Yes. Shadow the Hedgehog. Yep. You spoons a lot, right? Of course. I know. If you consume. Of course. I know. Well, I spoons a lot, originally. I know, right? Just gives me a good point. If I consume. Of course. I know. I spoons a lot. I assume I had to get this straight, by the way. Of course? Yep. Right, you didn't know this? Well, I spoons a lot. Of course. I know, right? If I consume. Of course. You had the spoon staff for a while, right? Well, I guess you're right. Yep. Since you know. If I was gonna know this? Of course. I spoon staff for a while. Then we know this. Of course. I had the spoon staff for a while. Alright then. I had the spoons a lot. I know, why? If I can see him. Of course. I spoons a lot, usually. Then we know this. I agree. If I can see him. Of course. I had spoons a lot, usually. So, you didn't know this? Yes, he just gives me a good point, also. Then none of this. Of course. Alright then. Yes! I'm gonna spoon this for a while. Okay. If I was good at this. Of course. I know, why? If I consume. Of course. I know, I had spoon staff for a while. Then you know this? Yep. Of course. I know, why? Well, it just gives you a good point. Well, if I was gonna know this? Of course. Yep. Agree.